Good morning, or shall I say good afternoon, everyone, and I would like to thank you for taking the time to join Test House today for our live webcast. This is the first of 3 webinar sessions we will present in joint collaboration, partnership with both Microsoft and Comparex. Today's presentation is on a guide to using MTM within Visual Studio 2013. We will be presenting some of the key and useful features of MTM, including creating, executing test cases, looking at exploratory testing, data parameters, and more. I am proud to be joined today by my colleague Peter Mannering, our Visual Studio consultant for Test House. The presentation will last for 40 minutes, followed by a Q&A at the end of the session. Before I pass you over to my colleague Peter, please feel free to type in your individual questions on your Q&A pod now or during the presentation. We will answer most of the questions if time permits. A full screen is also available at the top of your screen, which would be useful when Peter will run his many demos and videos today. So without further delay, I now pass you over to my colleague Peter.
Well, thank you, Mel, and hello everyone, and welcome again to the MTM webinar from Test House. We've got quite a lot of material to get through today, so let's press on. Just have a very quick introduction to Test House. We're headquartered in London, but we have a global presence in Dubai and all around the world. It has sales offices in the United States, and we provide a cost-effective and quality service for your software testing needs. We have quite a long list of previous clients, as you can see there, all different sizes of clients in different industries. So what we're going to be covering today is a very quick overview of manual testing and how MTM addresses that challenge, some test plans and test suites, some information about that, about the test cases as well, and how you create them and run them and create bugs as well, because when you're testing, that's a very important function, good bug reporting. Data driving with parameters, so you can vary your tests by using the same test case. How to do some automation, and finally some exploratory testing. There's quite a few topics to be getting on with. And at the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So, why do we do manual testing? Well, you can see here there's a lot of different kinds of manual testing you can do, from the generalist to the specialist. 70% of the testing happens on this side, which is more of the manual side of things. That's the question most people want to know: does the software actually do what you want it to do? Okay. Whereas on the right-hand side, you've got sort of testing that needs more expert skills like automation and performance testing. Most of the tools targeting on the right-hand side work for things like automation and that kind of thing. And MTM really tries to address the gap in the market for tools to do with manual testing. So it's a good tool to do your organisation and to organise your manual tests and to execute from, and for good communications between all of your team. MTM has 2 basic parts: the testing centre, which we'll be concentrating on today, and another area for lab management. But that's something that's well outside the scope of this discussion. But you can also create and organise lab environments from MTM. So test plans and test suites then. The first thing you've got to do within MTM is connect to Team Foundation Server. MTM cannot work without Team Foundation Server, as it's the repository of all the information that MTM uses. So you must connect to your server that you have in-house. Then the next thing to do is to create a test plan. And a test plan really is the hold-all for all of your manual testing. And you create iterations, testing iterations. You can define what diagnostics that you want to have back, set up some default parameters for all of your testing. We haven't got time to delve into it too deeply now, but it's really the start point of your testing efforts. So a test plan has test suites, which I'll talk about in more detail in a minute. Within your test suite, you have your test cases, of course, which are the individual tests that you want your testers to do. And the test cases are made up of test steps, individual steps in the test. Okay, shared steps, which is where you may have some steps that are useful throughout many of your test cases, so you can import them and have a library of them. And also parameters. That's where you can have data driving, and you can use the same test to do different sorts of tests on your application. Okay, but more of that a bit later. So the test suites that live inside the test plan, right, they're logical containers for your test cases. You can create a hierarchy out of them, although probably not too deep. It's probably the best idea. There are three basic types of test suites: requirement, query, and static. Okay, we'll talk about that more a bit later. You can have different configurations, so different browsers, different operating systems that you need to make sure that your systems work on. They can be created with an MTM, and then the system will present the test cases within those configurations. So you can be sure you've got good coverage over whatever environments you need to test in. And test suites can be copied between test plans very easily. So you can have a standard set of tests that go forward inside your project, and you can be confident you can do retesting using those same test suites. So test suites, as I said, are requirements, work items. You can do work item queries on them. Okay, so you can pull in what test cases you want into your test cases, test suites based on these queries. You can assign different users, that's different testers. So you know what testers are going to be responsible to do what tests. And the states are in planning, in progress, and completed. Okay, so you can turn on and off your test suites and make them usable or unusable as your project continues forward. Here's your static test suites. Okay, so you can make the hierarchy out of your static test suites, and then you can just put anything you want in them. They're not based on any particular query or requirement. You can just set them up and put whatever you want inside them. You can also have query-based test suites, so that you can set up a query, like an SQL-like query, to say, I want to gather together all my priority 1 or priority 2 test cases within the test suite, or all the test cases that are going to be executed by a certain tester, so that you can be sure you can gather together all your different test cases within one test suite and see them very easily. But the most useful one, I think, is the requirements-based test suite, whereby you have a set of requirements already in place within TFS, and then you can very easily set up your test suites and link them to your different requirements to make sure you've got good coverage over your requirements. And then you can have linkages between the requirements and the test suites as well, then, all set up for you. Linkages between the different areas of your project is very important for reporting and for management. So a lot of these linkages are set up for you if you use the tool in the correct manner. So configuration, that I've mentioned, different operating systems and browsers and so forth. Anything that's variable inside the environment you'll be testing in, you can set up a user-definable configuration to make sure that you're testing under all the platforms that need to be tested. So here's a quick screenshot. On the left-hand side, here's your test plan, which is the root of the hierarchy you can see there, and then a very simple project with only 3 test suites. So you can click on those and you can see what test cases you've got inside the test suites. And on the right-hand side, you will see the different test cases as they appear within those test suites. So it makes organisation very easy quite easy to find exactly what you're looking for. So I'm going to run a demo now, which talks about these test suites in a bit more detail.
So now that we have a test plan in place, we need to create some test suites to put the test cases into. Now there's several ways we can do that. If you want to add a test suite based purely on a requirement, you can just type that button and you come up with a query which you can add to. But basically what this is saying is find me all the requirements within this test project that have the status new. So if you run that, you can see we have a few options for us, a few requirements. It also picks out bugs. The reason it does that, if I open that up, I can go to the test cases. It looks for bugs and it will look for the test cases associated with those bugs. So if I built a test case built on this, it would then import that test case into the test suite that I build from it. If I'm just interested in pure requirements at the moment, I can choose as many of these as I want, but there's only one requirement, that's the add numbers requirement. So let's create a test suite based on that requirement. Add requirements plan. And you see here there's a new test suite which is automatically being associated with a requirement. As you can see here in the heading of the test suite, I've got a link here to requirement number 3. If I can click that, I can go straight into Team Foundation Server and look at the requirement with all the associated test cases, if there's any, all the tasks, history, links and attachments, and I can edit this as I see fit. At this point I can mention that every test suite has a status, so it defaults to in progress, but when you create a test suite it's probably a good idea to just put it into the planning phase. That means that no one can now execute any test cases that are now in that test suite. Another way to create a test suite is to do it by a query, and that is you just make sure that you highlight the test plan, the root. This drop down here, you have a query based suite. If I click that, then I have another query presented to me. In this case it's looking for all of the priority 2 cases, test cases. I could change that to priority 1 if I wanted to, or I could add another clause to make the search a bit more focused. If I run this query now, you see there's quite a few cases within this project that have been built already which are of priority 2. So if I create a test suite based on this query, it will create the test suite and automatically import all of those cases for me. And again I can change that to in planning. So if there are any test cases that are created within this project, they'll automatically be gathered up into this test suite. So that makes it very easy to find what you're looking for. One more way to create test suites is purely by to have a standalone test suite, so you don't have any queries associated with it. So you just create a new test suite, and in there I can put anything I like. So it's like a miscellaneous kind of test suite.
Right, so we'll go forward and we'll say, so I've got the test cases. As we said, the test cases are really what you want the testers to actually execute. Okay, so that you write these test cases and the testers will see them and they'll follow the instructions on the test case. They're just a list of instructions, and they can be automated as well. You can do some automation with them, or they can be data-driven with parameters. And here's a screenshot of a test case. So on the left-hand side here, you've got the actions. On the right-hand side, you've got expected results. And there's lots of other things you can do with them. There's lots of detail in there, which you'll see in a second. So we look at this, another demonstration then.
So how do we go about actually creating these test cases that we're going to use to actually do our testing with? Well, once we've got our test suites, we can add test cases to them. If you highlight the test suite you want to add to, you can either add an existing test case or many existing test cases by using a query, and you have a drop down here which gives you all your pre-made queries that you have in your area. You can add clauses to here and change this so that it returns the ones you want, but when you run it you can choose any of these different cases that you want to add to that particular test suite. But what I want to show you is how to create one from scratch. So you hit the new button. This gives you this form. You have to name your new case. So I'll call it new add test case. You can assign it to what iteration within the project you want. Assign it to a tester, put it in the design phase, and give it a priority. You can have it automated, but that's something we'll discuss a bit later. And if you have areas set up within your projects, you can define what areas you want to put it against. Then you define the actual steps you're interested in doing, that you want your testers to perform. So on this side, on the left hand side, you type the actions that you want them to perform. Okay. Then on the right side, on the right hand side here, you can, if optionally, have a expected result from that particular line. Okay. So you simply repeat that process for as many the individual test steps as you think are needed. I'll do one more of those. Okay, so we have some simple mathematics, each with an action and a desired result, and we'll do close the app. So when the test runs, as you'll see in due course, the actions will be presented to the tester, and each time there's an expected result, the test will stop and they'll be given opportunity to pass or fail the test at that point. So that's all our steps defined for the moment. Up here we have some more instructions. We can insert another step if we come back to it, decide we need a few more details for our testers, we can add another step in. We can delete a step, so if I don't want that one I can just highlight it and delete it. You can change the order of the steps within the test case by just highlighting it and using the arrows. You can insert shared steps. That's where you have a common set of steps that may be applicable to several different test cases. You can create them separately and then call to that those shared steps, and they'll just call whatever was in that defined shared steps. And here you can do a data driving, basically, is what that is. So here, as you see, I've got several similar lines with inputs and outputs. Instead of having maybe lots of lines like that, you can just use an external data source to drive those numbers, to provide those numbers, and then it goes round, and that's something I'll show you later. It repeats several times depending on how many rows you have in your data source. And one more thing you can do up here is that if you think there's some useful information in an external file which you can attach to one of these test steps, you can do so with that button. You can add a file So if I think that if that's, for example, some kind of requirement file that I think is relevant to that particular test step, I can attach it there. So that shows me that there's a file now attached to that particular test step. So a tester can open that when he actually comes to do the testing. Along here you've got your steps as you can see, but there's some other bits of information that could be useful. There's a free-form summary here, so the tester can keep a commentary of what's been happening in the tests. And here you can attach to different requirements to say that there's other things that are being tested by this particular test case. You can link to other work items within the project, so that keeps everything. So if there's a bug or something that could be associated with this test case, that could be linked in via this screen. Just coming here, and you can have a type of link, and then it would ask you what you'd like to attach. You can have external attachments, and you say that one's already been attached to one of the test steps, but you can attach other things here to the test case as a whole. See, that's attached to test step 2. And something I'll be talking about a bit later is automation. So this section is to do with how you automate a test. At the moment it's completely manual. So once you're happy with your test, also one other thing you can do here is, which is new to 2012, you can actually have rich text down here. So you can make any of these bold if you want to, or you can change the colour if you think it's really important. Okay, you can split these up over several lines if you want to, but you can underline italic just to give different emphasis to the tester, to make sure that there's no misunderstandings. So once I'm all happy with that, I can close and save, and there we have a new test case ready to be tested.
We'll carry on. And how to execute a test case. Well, obviously, once you've written your test cases, yes, you need to execute them. You'll see a little pop-up when you run a test called the test runner. Everything minimises apart from the test runner, and every individual step will be able to, the tester can mark it pass or fail. Okay, and for every step must pass for the whole test to pass. And of course, all results are automatically gathered and stored in CFS for reporting purposes and history. You can easily create bugs when you find any bugs, and those bug reports are stored in TFS for anybody to see at any time. So communication is very good. You can suspend and pause tests at any time and go back and amend things, and then go back and carry on the test where you left off. So everything's there for you, and you don't have to put your bug reports in different systems or in emails, and you can make sure the right people get to see them. And they're available immediately. I think it's quite a good strength of this particular software package. So here's a screenshot of a run, a test under being run at the moment. So here's the application on the right-hand side that's being tested. On the left-hand side, you have your the runner, the test runner, and you can see that the tester is running through there and marking the test as passed or failed, and they can see the test steps there.
So now that we have some test suites and some test cases, how do we go about actually executing them and getting some results in? Well, I've just recorded another similar test case over here, very similar to the one we did. To actually execute these test cases, we have to go into the testing area like that, and at the moment you see I haven't got anything to test. There's a reason for that, and that's because if you remember, I talked about the statuses of these test suites. So if I change that to in progress and then go across the testing area, you see I have these tests, but you see here there are 4 there are 4 tests within this test suite, and that is because, if I quickly come back here, you can see that there are 2 configurations defined for this test suite. Therefore, each test has to be executed twice, once for each configuration. And you can also see up here you've got displayed the build definition that we chose, so the testers know they have to use that build. There's also this filter feature here, so I can only look at, if I want to, test cases that have that configuration or only that configuration, or I can also filter on the tester who's been assigned to that particular test. So I can if I want to, I can only look at the ones that I'm interested in. Okay. So if I then highlight one of these tests, you can do several things up here. You can run it, which I'll do in a second. One thing here, you can open the test case from this position if you want to see what's inside it. If you want to just have a quick preview of what you're going to do before you actually go ahead and run it, you can do that. And you have these buttons here. These allow you to either block a test or pass it or fail it without actually going through the testing. So if I wanted to block that test, for instance, if I think that test isn't ready to be tested, I can just block it. And it splits it up into different areas of what is blocked and what is passed. So you can say that's passed. I can say that's blocked. If I draw your attention up to this bar at the moment, because I've passed and failed some of these tests, this bar up here gives you an idea of what's going on inside this test suite. So you've got 1 active, 1 blocked, 1 failed, and 1 passed. That just gives you an idea of what's going on inside this particular test suite. There could be hundreds down here. So what I can do now, I can just set them all back to active again. Just to get by. Okay, so let's actually go ahead and test one of these cases now. So you highlight the one you're interested in and just simply hit run. And that will launch something called the test runner. Okay, now what happens there is the whole screen minimizes apart from this test runner, and that is used to actually drive the test. And you see you've got several options here. You can start the test or create an action recording, which I'll talk about in a second. So if we just start the test, okay, it's test 1 of 1, because I only asked it to drive 1. This is the Windows 8 configuration. It's telling me to use, and I've got the test steps here. So if I want to do this test, all I have to do is follow the instructions. So open app, I'll use a calculator. So it says expected the application opens, so I can pass that step. I can do that by using that drop down. I can just press the pass button, or I can use this shortcut key, Win Control Q, and pass it. And then it says do some other stuff, so 4 plus 3. I can see that works as a 7, so that's passed. If you notice here, you've got that settings file attached to this test step, so I can just open that if I wanted to and take a look at it. Another way to pass these steps is just to click that line and it just passes. Do 3 plus 2. That's 5, so that's fine. And finally close the application. And that worked. So now that I have come to the end, I can tap that end test, and what that has done is automatically passed the test for me, because we've got 100% pass rate here. So, and then I'm happy with that, so I can just save and close. And that is how to run a test to completion. successfully.
For a bug, you can submit the bug straight away. Okay, when you see the bug, you can see it. Or when you do some analysis, you can actually create a bug from anywhere within MTM. So you don't have to be running it to create a bug. Okay. All diagnostics which have been collected while the test is being run will be collected and attached to the bug report. So all the good diagnostics will go back to the developers to help them to fix the problem, and the linkages, of course, will automatically be put in place. So you have a link between the bug report and the test case that's been running. Right? And all this will be visible from MTM and from Visual Studio and from your reporting function within MTM. So here's a quick screenshot. You'll be able to see all the user has to do, the tester has to do, is press a button, and it will present them with a bug report which they can fill in. And a lot of information will be put in there for them. Okay, like the test steps, for example, to make a really useful bug report. So we'll run this demonstration, the bug report verification.
Okay, what I want to show now is what happens if you run a test and you find a bug. It fails. What can you do then? So I'll find another one which I haven't actually run as yet, and I'll run that up. And again, up comes the test runner, and I'll start it. Now, there are several things you can do in here in the test runner. If you look at this, you can automatically dock left, but you can dock it to the right if that's more convenient, or you can indeed have it floating around the screen while you do your test, or you can have it false, or you can open it up to take a look, but we'll dock it left. Okay, and you can change the size of it as well. Okay, so what I'll do now, I'll run through the test. I won't actually do the manipulations on the calculator, because I'll just show you if it's passed or failed. So we'll say that that's open, that's passed, but I will open it up so that I can do something a bit later on. Okay, so let's say that's opened. 4 plus 3, we'll take that as read. Before I move on, I'll just quickly show you this function. Return to the testing center. If I get halfway through a test and decide that I want to suspend the test for whatever reason, I can just go back to the testing center, and I can look around here for something else, or go away and do something. And up here there's a button, Return to Test Center. And then all I have to do is hit the resume button, and I'm back exactly where I was. So you can suspend your test halfway through. But let us now say that this test has in fact failed. So we'll cause that to fail, and straight away I get a chance to write a comment. Okay. So what I can do from here is I can take a screenshot. Okay. So all this information is going to be included in a bug report that's going to go back to the developers. So you can see that screenshot has been added. So what I want to do here now is to create a bug. I can update an existing bug if there's one I know exists for this particular issue that I found, but I'm going to create a bug from scratch. And straight away I come up with this bug report, which has been already partially filled in for me. It's got the steps, which passed, which failed. Screenshot's been included, as my comment has. Okay. Down here you've got some system diagnostics, and exactly what system diagnostics is called can be defined in the test settings, which you've seen before. There's also some system information, so that's all that can be useful in the debugging. It's automatically included as well as the test case that this bug has come from, so it's add new test case. You've also can add link different tasks as well, and over on this side you've got your history, links and attachments, and up here is the normal things. you've come to recognise, like severity and the reason for a bug. It's new in this instance. You can assign it to someone specific over in development if you want to. Okay, so you need obviously to give the bug a name. Okay. So once you've done that and you've added any notes you see fit, you're happy with that, so you can save and close the bug report. Now, so we'll carry on with this bug now. So we'll say that that's passed, and we can end the test. And it's automatically failed the test for us, because unless we have 100% here, it will fail. Okay, so we can save and close that. And it's automatically put it in the failed category for us, and it's updated this bar to tell us what's going on. So if I now go over for a second and open up the Visual Studio, now I'm pretending to be a developer for a second. I've got one of my queries to look at the bugs in the system, and you can see this is the one that we've just added, new add none bug, and that's got the status of new. So as a developer, I would then open this bug, okay, and I'd look at it, and I would do my investigations. I'd look at the screenshots and look at all the information that's come back, and I would say after a while, bug fixed, and then I'd update the status of this bug to done, to say that this bug is now, as far as I'm concerned, been fixed, and I can save the work item. And okay, so now that bug's been fixed, I will now quickly go back to here, and I can now do a verification on the bugs very quickly. As you can see, I've had some build issues on the system, and here is the bug which we added just now. Now it has a status of done, because I refreshed the screen. Always worth refreshing the screen if you see something you don't expect. And there's the bug that the developer has just looked at. So now I have the option now to verify this bug, so I can highlight it. I can also filter these in various ways. The only ones that are assigned to me and created by me, for example. And I will verify this bug. And what that will do, it will automatically fire up the test case that was running when the bug was created. This gives me a chance to rerun this test to make sure that the bug has in fact been fixed. So we'll start the test again. Okay, and I'll just run through the steps, and I'll mark everything as passed correctly, to simulate the fact that the developer has done his work properly and fixed the bug. So we'll end the test there. It says passed, and we'll save and close. And one extra thing that happens, because this is a verification run, I get the chance to change the status of the bug to committed, to say that it has actually been fixed. Or if I'm not happy, I can just I can bounce it back and send a message back to the developer to say that it hasn't been fixed, and I can put a new comment in here. I can open the bug and do some changes and pass it back, or I can just save these. And it says it's been committed. And now that information will now flow back via Team Foundation server to the development staff, and they'll be able, and the managers, and they'll be able to see that that bug has indeed been fixed. And that's basically the life cycle of a bug. And as you can see, it makes it very easy for for interaction between the developers and the testers.
Some other topics I talk about. Data driving with parameters. This is I briefly touched on this before. So with the parameters that we had before, you can see we had a test which you could data drive. It's a little bit limited, to be honest, within an MTM, but you can have a stack of data and roll around the data and change your inputs and outputs, and what the user will see, or the tester will see, are the test iterating several times with those different inputs and outputs, and the results are stored individually on those iterations. Okay, so you know exactly what's been tested and exactly what's been tested and what results they were. You can see here you've got different parameters replacing the hard-coded values, and you can set up a data table at the bottom, and here, for example, the system will repeat this test twice, okay, and plug in those numbers. Okay, I think we should push straight on because we're starting to get a little bit short of time. And talk a little bit about automation, or as I call it, semi-automation, because it's not, to be honest, it's not a full automation with MTM. You can do a recording on the interactions with the application. So if it's a very complicated test with a lot of button pushes, you can record that and then do a playback step by step, so that you don't have to actually do the interactions, okay? And that allows you to fast forward through your testing very quickly. You can replay those steps one at a time, and you can replay the whole recording in one hit, so that you can see very quickly if the application has got any problems or not. And as an aside, okay, you can take those action recordings and you can do what's called a coded UI out of it, which is a lot more powerful form of testing. But that could be a subject for a future webinar. But so that's a very much more powerful form of automation with a lot more powerful data driving, for instance. And here we see someone's doing the recording, and you can see here that the recording has taken place. Now, one thing that was stressed, and this is why I'm sort of going to the end, was the exploratory testing. This is a very powerful, different kind of testing that you can do. Instead of following a set script, a set series of tests, you can just get an expert user and get them to just improvise and try and use the system as a real user would try and use it, which isn't necessarily the way that it was designed to be used. And then maybe also try to do something which is not allowed, like trying to get into the system, part of the system where you're not allowed to try to enter the wrong kind of data in a data form. Just try and break the system maliciously. That's why it's a good idea to try and get someone with a lot of knowledge of the system to do this. So what the system will do is we'll just set up a testing session, and it will record everything that you do, okay? And then when you find a bug, you can create a bug report in a similar way to you've seen before in the previous demonstration, and that's sent over to the developers. And then when you finish the exploratory testing, another clever thing that it does, it actually tries to create for you a test case so you can verify that fix and use that test case in future testing, okay? It's a good bare bones test, but you'll have to do some editing on it to make it really usable. For example, it doesn't have expected results, okay? So here for example, is exploratory testing. It gives you the actions, but it doesn't give you the expected results, so you'd have to fill those in, okay, to make a usable test case. Okay, and a record is kept of every test session that's been done as well. Like everything is recorded for future reference. So we just play this final demonstration.
I'm going to demonstrate some exploratory testing to you now. That's testing without any kind of prior script, where you just explore the application and see if you can find any issues. I'm in the testing area, so you go into the Do Exploratory Testing tab, and you have the option of doing exploratory testing based on requirements, but I'm going to show you how to just do exploratory testing not based on any requirements, just opening up the application to see what you can find. So you do that just by pressing this button, which opens the test runner, and it just gives you the option of starting. What it's doing here, it's just allowing me to open up the application of interest and just try in various bits of mathematics. I'm an experienced user, so I know what kind of things I should be doing and what might cause issues. I could, if I wanted to, type a comment here as I go along. And let's say I find a bug here. So what I can do is I can now add a screenshot into, as before, add a screenshot into the mix, and that will go back. So now what I want to do is create a bug, and what that's doing, it's creating a bug report with all the steps that I've done up to this point. So I can give it a name. It's called exploratory bug, and it automatically included the state and the reason. Then my observations, it's given the screenshot that I put in. Now, quite often in exploratory testing, the first few steps are irrelevant, because I could be sitting there driving this thing for a few minutes before I find a bug, but all of the steps like logging in and navigating to the correct section are not really relevant. So what I can do, I can change the steps and get these screenshots, and I can select various steps. The ones that are relevant. And just choose the steps which are relevant to the problem that I've found. And of course I can add all the other links. System information is there to look at. So once I've added that, I can save and close. But before I do that, I can also create a test based on this bug, so that I can now do a regression test. So here's a new test case. Actually has to have the name, but it's all automatically got inside it all of the steps which I selected to go away for the exploratory testing bug, so that when I come back to verify that bug, or I can build this test case into my regression strategy, so that it's a known problem, but now I have a test for that problem. So I can do what I want with this test as before, or I can just save it and okay, so now that I've got my bug and a test case, I can end my testing session. Okay, and once you've done some exploratory testing, you can view your testing sessions, and here's the one we just made. So we can take a look at that, and that has got the testing session that I just made and some details about it and what I did. So there's a record of the sessions there, and so there's the bugs which I've made. That's the bug I just made, Okay, there's a test case there which I created. It's all in the record. So I close that down. And if you want to find that test case which has been recorded, you will find it in the test plan suite. So there it is. So I can take that now and I can move it to somewhere more useful. So I could move it to another test suite if I wanted to, and have that as part of a regression pack, and use that for a test in future iterations.
So we'll quickly go back to the slides, and I know I'm conscious that I've run over time here, but I did have quite a lot of material to try and show you. So that's the end of the demonstration part. Just to say that Test House, we can help you with your customization of your testing strategy and your implementation as well. We can offer consultancy in not only testing, the testing phase, but all aspects of ALM and how testing can fit into the ALM, and how Visual Studio can help you to manage your whole project lifecycle. We also offer training on MTM and other aspects of Visual Studio testing, which go into a lot more depth with a lot more time, of course. There's a lot of features of MTM that I haven't had time to show you today, but I hope I've shown you the basics and shown you that it's a really useful tool. So I will hand you back to Melanie, okay, for some questions and answers.
Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you guys for staying with us. Once again, apologies for the initial demo, the beginning of the demo. There was a bit of a technical issue there. When you receive your recording within the next sort of couple of days, that will be fixed. So you will have a proper recording with the proper demo and video on it. So as Peter mentioned, we are now taking questions. So if you do have any questions that you wanted to ask Peter, please do type them on your Q&A pod. We will take a few questions. As Peter mentioned, we are, I think, running sort of a couple of minutes late, but we will take a couple or a few questions, and then if need be, we will take some of them offline. So please feel free to type in your questions on your individual Q&A pod. Looks like we have a few questions coming through. Okay. We'll start with this question. Can MTM manage regression tests?
Yes, well, regression testing is a very important part of testing as you move forward through a project. You want to make sure that any changes to the code base has not broken anything which has gone before. Okay, you don't want to find loads of bugs at the end when you do your big testing at the end, your user acceptance testing. So what you can do is in MTM, you can set up a test suite which is dedicated to a regression pack. Okay, and then it's very easy for you to copy those tests forward in the project by copying them from one plan to the next, because what usually happens is if you have iterations in your projects, then one test plan is used for each iteration. Therefore, you can copy that test suite forward into those different test plans, and then they'll be there as a regression test for that phase in your project. So you can handle your regression testing in that way.
Thank you, Peter. Second question. What kind of diagnostics can be gathered when testing?
Well, I didn't really have time to talk about this during the demonstration, but when you set up your test plan, there is a place where you can define which diagnostics you want to be gathered every time that a test is run, and those diagnostics are kept in the results store within Team Foundation server, and also noted in all the bug reports. But you've got, apart from screenshots, you've got logs of what happened. You can set a video running, so you can have a little video of the test in place. You can have something that's called IntelliTrace, which is like a debugger that runs in the background all the time, so that if you've got a really complex bug, you can send back to the developers very detailed information about what the system is doing as you're running through your test. Okay, those are some of the major diagnostics that can be set up to be automatically captured when you do your testing.
Thank you. I think we'll just take one more question, and we'll take some of them offline. Question: can MTM be used to ensure you use the correct build when testing?
Yes, this is a kind of another aspect of MTM which we didn't have time to cover. If you use Visual Studio to do your development and to do your builds, then Team Foundation Server has all kinds of information about the builds and what went into them and when they were made, etc. So what you can do is you can attach a particular build to a test plan when you do your testing, and so that ensures that all the testers know which build they should be using when they run their tests. That becomes very obvious to them. There's also all sorts of other clever things you can do with the build, like it can tell you what's changed from one build to another, which of course is useful to the tester. It gives you an indication of what testing you should do for a particular build. All these kinds of things we haven't had time to show you today, but there's definitely scope for knowledge about what build you're using for a particular set of tests.
Thank you very much, Peter. That wraps up our Q&A session for today. Before we go, the recording will be available, as I mentioned earlier, early next week, the latest, with proper recording and demo, especially at the beginning of the presentation. Again, before we go, if you have any further questions you would like to ask Peter, please do email him. His contact details are on your slide or on your screen right now. We will hope to see you again at our next session. The date that I have for our next webinar session is Tuesday, the 23rd of September, same time. So our topic will be on automated testing using Visual Studio 2013 Coded UI. Thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon. Have a great day.